Welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, April 9th, 2021. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. After months of worrying about a possible eruption of La Soufriere volcano, it all came to a head today as the volcano blows, with the first massive explosion recorded at around 8:41 a.m. The ash plume from the explosion extended vertically to about 10 kilometers. Lead monitoring scientist Professor Richard Robertson said the onset of the eruption started with continuous tremors.
So we move from banded tremor, with these bands of tremor, to continuously tremoring. And then at about 8:37 this morning, in fact, we started to see a signal, and the signal slowly grew in amplitude. It increased the size of the shaking, or the amount of shaking that you had. And then by 8:41, you had people realized there was an explosion. In fact, the punching through of the vent and of the dome that was there would have happened sometime after 8:37, probably to 8:41.
Professor Robinson said ash clouds were reported by pilots between 20 miles north to 50 miles southeast of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, up to 29,000 feet at the estimated height.
Basically, you have a set of ash that went off towards the east at a higher level, and a set that went off towards the west at a lower level. And of course, once the ash is in the atmosphere, it eventually falls back down. So areas as far south as Belmont, where we are at observatory here, began to feel ash. So we had some ash fall here. All of this is expected. Essentially, what has happened is that, as we had said, the batch of magma that had been trying to come up for the longest while, it seems that it has either right at the surface or quite close to the surface, and then overnight it punched through, and it has cleared. You could say it's cleared the throat of the volcano. And so after the explosion, the tremor and the shaking went on for about 40 minutes or so, and the sounds went on. After it had punched through and caused the column, it continued roaring for a little while, so to speak. So the full, but after that, within about an hour, it then has gone back down to quiet. Not so much quiet as it was before, though. It sort of, the tremoring continued for quite a little while, up to about a little over an hour. And we're now back into sort of a quiet period in between.
The lead monitoring scientist said it is possible there would be more explosions which could extend into days or weeks. The geologist said that he and his team will be collecting more data to track the eruption, noting that the explosion could become smaller or bigger.
Actually, there is fresh magma, fresh material, gas-rich enough to cause an explosion. Right close to the surface. And once that is there, it could explode. The first one might have been not necessarily the biggest one. It's possible that you could have explosions that go higher and carry plumes higher in the atmosphere than this one did. The areas that's going to be affected most are still the areas we have said, which is the volcano itself, the possibility for pyroclastic flows are the volcano itself, the red areas, the periphery of the orange areas in terms of pyroclastic flows and surges. But mainly the rest of St. Vincent is probably going to be affected only by ash. Most of the ash is going to stay in the northern part of the country. So I was surprised if a lot of ash gets to the green and the yellow areas even. But really that depends on the wind direction.
And speaking on the country's evacuation plan, which started on Thursday when he gave the order for persons in the red zone to evacuate, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, in a follow-up news conference today, said the systems of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, have been working, though there was some hiccups, particularly with transportation on the northeastern side of the island.
It is partly understandable at the very hour itself. Julian Francis had to ensure that the Braxa diesel fueling station at Rabaco is open so that people can get diesel, and to get Lolly gas station to open so that people can get diesel and gasoline. And the movements, they were a little later. I'm talking about movements by minibuses were a little later than what happened, I've been advised, down on the western side, on the leeward side, where there has been a good movement by boat, of course, because of the Atlantic side. We don't have the ports, the facilities there for, as we have on the western side, for vessels to go.
Prime Minister Gonzalez noted that up to the time of the conference, hundreds of persons were already evacuated by buses, private transportation and boats. He said a number of shelters were operational, with some at a better level of preparedness than others. Noting his concerns for the elderly, short-ins and those with health problems, PM Gonzalez said he would like to see more of these persons in hotels and guest houses.
Costs more money, but I don't want the operation, and I made that clear, to be run as though where it's a penny pinching NGO operation. And the hotels have indicated, the guest houses beforehand, that they have about, I was told, about 800 rooms, and I think we can call other persons who didn't indicate before to get more. But I'd like to see, as I said, the elderly persons go there, the people who are shut-ins, sometimes particular types of families, depending on the risk profile in relation to particular families. Because let's face it, being in a shelter, which is a school, even though you have a cot and you have a bed and your meals are coming, it's not home. We don't want persons to experience the conditions in the camps, in the shelters, which are really too onerous.
Prime Minister Gonzalez noted that the hotels and guest houses have, however, requested that those they will be accommodating get vaccinated and tested. In respect to persons moving regionally, PM Gonzalez said he has been in touch with the Prime Ministers of Antigua, Grenada and Dominica, who all expressed their willingness to offer accommodation to Vincentians, and that they will be ready to receive persons by Sunday or Monday.
Naturally, places have been closed up, hotels for instance, or guest houses, and they have to clean them up. They have to put them in a state of readiness. And I want to say this, and every time when I've raised the issue of, well, tell me if I have to send resources to feed, and the immediate answer is, listen, don't worry yourself about that. It is very touching that there are families in Antigua and Grenada and St. Lucia and Dominica who are calling in and say that they will take people, if need be, into their homes. Amazing, eh? On this dangerous road to Jericho.
As to the cruise ships already in SVG's waters, PM Gonzalez said the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Simone Kisa Beach, and her team will be identifying the persons who are already vaccinated to get them on these ships, which will be taking them to the neighboring countries.
The ships don't have enough personnel at the moment to keep people on the ships. but they have enough personnel to transport persons to these destinations. But Simone Kiza Beach tells me that what she wants to do is to, the chief medical officer, is that those who are vaccinated, she can get them going there on the vessel, those on the ships, those who to go to particular destinations, if they choose to. This is a voluntary business. And those who are not yet vaccinated but who would be vaccinated, you wouldn't want to send them immediately after vaccination. You'd want to hold them, keep them for a day or two, because some persons upon vaccination, they develop an itch, a little wooziness in their head. You know how that is. Some people, so you would like to keep them there, so there's 2 days and so on. So there are some matters which have to be dealt with. And then the ships are doing, there's certain things we have to do with them.
An emotional Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, thanked Vincentians and all Caribbean nationals and governments for their support to SVG during this difficult time.
I must tell you, the way in which people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in ordinary people and in Grenada and in Dominica, St. Lucia and Antigua have responded to put people in their homes, strangers, bring tears to my eyes. I love this Caribbean. I want to thank the minibus operators who have thus participated, and I'm asking all of them to participate. I know your bus costs money and so on, and you will be paid, don't worry about that. I want you to help. And today, with the explosive eruption, I want you to help in moving the people and persons who have private vehicles to help also. And in some places, if you go into a shelter, you may not end up at the shelter permanently, because that might also be a clearing house for you to go to a hotel or a guest house, or maybe to go somewhere else. Of course, large numbers of persons still would have to stay in the shelters.
The evacuation of persons from the danger zones, which started on Thursday afternoon after the evacuation order was given, continues today. Our news team was on the leeward side of the island, where persons flocked to the designated shelters in the safe zones. Larissa Pugs the Kid tells us more in this report.
106 shelters were activated by the National Management Organization, NEMO. Some of these shelters, which are in the safe zones, began receiving evacuees late last night. Persons evacuated from the danger zone in North Leeward were evacuated by sea and land. The Barley Government School was one of the designated shelters for some of these persons.
And I'm also responsible for the children, make sure they are safe and they are comfortable.
The shelter is very going good. Right, okay, but we have one problem here, is that the problem of from the cots. We do not have any cots, so I just make a report to the authorities, so they will do it in the soonest.
Teachers from this school volunteered their services to help with the processing of the evacuees.
So they come by the station, we take their temperature, we sanitize them, we take their names, and we show them to where they'll be staying.
Some persons said they were happy that they were able to get out late last night, but it was a different story when they arrived at the shelters.
We reached here about like after 12 last night, and then we come here. We ain't get no bed to sleep, and we are today on the concrete, and I see it real frustrated, and the place real dirty too.
So because you could see me, look, me have me 3 little children, and me don't bed, but them didn't have been here. Them didn't bed the skin for the man, and them are still hungry, and me working, me unemployed, and they sketch me up money in my pocket, so.
In Petershope, evacuees were settling in and were pleased with their accommodation.
Feel better today that I'm not down in Narklywood because, you know, it's hard getting out down there, so I'm okay now.
So I'm really lost person live there. All the ashes sketches, and it was really hard. But I like the experience very much.
We have peas and rice and chicken, and we have white rice and pilau.
At the Bethel Government School, it was a smooth transition for evacuees.
And we have prepared a little lunch for them, okay? So they settled in well last night. They got, cots, a couple mattresses that the school had. We gave it to them to use, and they really settled in well last night.
Volunteers were distributing masks at all shelters. Nurses and other frontline responders were also checking on evacuees. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pogsley-Kidd.
There was still too many persons left to be evacuated this morning in the danger zones. On the leeward side of the island, some waited to be evacuated by day but did not leave in time before the volcano explosively erupted at 8:41 a.m. Many were stranded, but there were some who refused to leave their communities. The communities southwest of the volcano were covered in a cloud of plume following the first explosion. In Rose Hall, which would usually have a clear vantage point of the summit of the volcano, was not visible. Upon hearing the explosion, residents who were not yet evacuated scamped to their assembly points.
This morning I go on the next side and I hear woo-goo-doo-goo-doo-goo-doo. I say, what is thunder rolling? Me tell the little one of them, watch. And then when I look over, I see smoke, fire, thing pitching, and I run back home. I still hang on my clothes at them. Now I came to the shop, I see all the ashes come over.
With the explosion, and lightning striking in the volcano, thunder. Non-stop thunder. Thunder for non-stop. 2 chip, 3 chip. That boy kind of hectic, but we have to help out the situation because we could have been in a position too, you know.
Okay, so y'all are from where?
Yeah, we're from Lago Heights in town. It's kind of difficult because it kind of fogging up the glass too, but we are give a helping hand still, you know.
From Belmont here in Rose Hall, I was on the ground since morning to get people out. I'm first response team. So people already out, so I'm getting myself out now. When I don't know, a lot of people up here are stubborn. They don't want to go out. Some say they're not going. So I'm not forcing myself who don't want to go.
Some were not too lucky with transportation. A mother began to walk with her children to safer ground. One woman said she has been waiting for more than an hour on the road.
We are here looking all right to go to Cumberland because there is a evacuation point there also. Right now we've been on the road for like over the past hour waiting for a ride and everything passing full, everything passing down, going for families down further. So we just had to wait. They said we're in the orange zone. Last night when I spoke to Carlos James, he said they are trying to evacuate people in the red zone first before they come to the orange zone. But this morning when we heard the rumbling, we had to just grab our things and come by the roadside looking for a ride, and we are here still waiting.
In the Rose Hall community, some persons say they are not leaving, even as there were rumblings coming from the volcano.
We are moving.
Why?
I'm not frightened.
I have faith in myself and God. It's the work of God, and I cannot deny that. I'm not going to freak God to run from God to go away.
Huh? But what is your plan in terms of making sure that you're safe?
If in case it gets more dangerous, I have no choice but to move.
But how do you plan to move if all vehicles have left?
Maybe I stick in that.
My reaction is just to watch it, you know.
And you're not moving?
No. And feel good to see the children watching, you know, telling.
The police in Rose Hall remained at base to ensure all persons will safely leave the community.
Every body have evacuated, and majority of the persons, and we are here at the police station. We are organizing to leave to go to emergency shelter.
But we prepared for it basically, and most of the people evacuated last night, like the older folks. Yeah, and then the rest that were behind just evacuated this morning.
Okay, what about the animals?
Animals, I'm not too sure what animals. I saw a few people walking with the animals on the back vehicles. That was like.
On the windward side of the island, our news team spoke with shelter managers and evacuees who also get a sense of how persons are coping. We get more in this report.
Persons from red and orange zones hastily evacuated their homes last evening into today with the explosive eruption of the Soufriere volcano. Emergency shelters across St. Vincent quickly sprang to life to accommodate displaced Vincentians from various communities in the danger zone on the windward side of the island. We spoke with several shelter managers who all shared similar sentiments that though things are not perfect, evacuees are in good spirits. At the time of our interviews, most shelters had not yet achieved their maximum capacity and were housing 50 to 90 persons.
Well, so far we have registered roughly 70 persons, but then again you have some persons who just came last night just for the sleep off, so they're leaving. Then we have another influx coming in today, so we're still doing some counting. But on the site, I mean, we have minor concern, which is normal, sanitation and stuff like that, but these are things that we can work around.
Last night we started with 39 evacuees. 2 families would have left, but currently we have about 50 persons registered at the shelter. Persons came last night, they did not get to walk with food supplies and stuff like that, but we fortunately had some food delivered to us from the minister, so they were able to get food last night, at least a cup of tea and bread and something, and they got breakfast this morning around the same.
Things are going quite fine. We started last night with a total of 87 persons, and by this morning the total went up to 91. Most of the persons who are at the shelter, they are placed into groups of families. We have a number of elderly and they're on the ground floor. We have other family members taking care of them, and we have some persons who needed medical care. We had a team of nurses from the Maracua Levi Latham Health Clinic. They came this morning and did some checks.
In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, temperature check, physical distancing and sanitization measures have all been going smoothly according to the various shelter managers. In one shelter, the isolation of a family that previously tested positive for COVID-19 was handled successfully as part of efforts to contain the spread of the virus under the circumstances are enforced. While several challenges were highlighted by shelter managers, the general consensus seems to be that despite some challenges, order and calm are being successfully maintained.
This morning I spoke to them, call them as a group, and they're calm so far, just the concern about their families who are still left behind. We don't have the storage capacity to take care of persons at the shelter for a long period of time. We had a tank, 800 gallon I think, that was on the ground a while, but persons from Broxah are here, they're going to try and install it today. We will be needing water after time because I don't have the experience of what I've heard from persons that when the ash start to fall, that the water is not going to be good enough to drink in, so we'll have to have the storage capacity increased.
To be honest, I am surprised at how calm most of them seem to be. When they heard that the volcano erupted today, we had a little kind of reality check that, yeah, this is really happening. We are still awaiting other supplies, cots, blankets, so on. A little bit of fixtures has to be fitted. We reported them already, so we are just waiting on the persons to come to deal with them. As you can see, we have our tank here. It's not installed as yet, but we are moving around. We would have put up barricades of curtains to kind of limit the number of ash that would come into the sleeping areas that they would have.
We saw pictures of the eruption of La Soufriere. Persons were a bit, they were emotional. Some of them cried because they had left family members at home. But after that, we had a general meeting and we assured them, we had prayer. We had a relaxing time after that.
While reports have stated that persons entering shelters will be vaccinated, our news team did not observe any nurses on hand to administer vaccines at the shelters we visited. Vincentians experienced the first explosive eruption of La Soufriere since 1979, 4 days shy of the 42nd anniversary of its eruption. Reporting for SVG-TV News, I am Shavsha Speedwell Callum.
Meanwhile, some of the persons in the red zone on the windward side of the island who did not heed the evacuation order yesterday afternoon found themselves at home or on the road when the volcano erupted explosively this morning. Some of these persons have since moved to shelters and detailed their harrowing experiences with our news team.
We hear Soufriere like boom, 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 like it going louder. When we look up, we see the smoke them booming up so, and like it covering over the whole place, and then we start to see like the stone and raining coming down.
So when I look, I just say boom, and a big smoke leg up in the air. If you see a crowd of smoke, I get so frightened. I say, cancer, boy. You have to jump back on camp.
When we go up this morning, when we reach home, when we coming back, me hear Bodo. When we look, see big smoke.
Did I fix a bike? So me think something like Bodo. So me say no. So I watch now, I hear something like a jet. So I say that I can roll like a jet. So I'm looking there, I look for jet now. See smoke going up in there. Big brown smoke, ball of smoke, start to scatter. Yeah. So I leave now and jump on a jeep. And leave the dog at the same place. I never run with nothing so. Yeah.
After that?
No, when I leave my body, I say yesterday he go to the put the goat in the house. And he put the dog in the house. I say, I can't study the dog and goat and run out because what will come there? I say, tell me next body now, I say, lad.
Other persons who experienced the 1979 eruption of La Soufriere volcano said this eruption appears to be more fierce.
This time, me and my partner go up. When I come back, when I start the we go drink room, me can't say that they know.
This one like it bad. Yeah, real bad too, eh? I never see them smoke there. Ball in the going up in the sky like you cover the whole sky coming down like you're coming down and me run to now.
In more local news, now on the La Soufriere volcano eruption, CARICOM is mobilizing its resources to assist SVG. So says its chairman, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley of Trinidad and Tobago. Similar sentiments were expressed by several Caribbean governments, including Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley and Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown.
And our support are with the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are brothers and sisters. Indeed, many of you who live here are related to persons there, and therefore we hope and pray that there is no loss of life and that the loss of property is minimalist.
To reiterate the commitment of the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda to continue to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, we are currently mobilizing to receive a few hundred Vincentians, and those Vincentians would be accommodated at the Jolly Beach Hotel. And in addition, we have also placed Leah on standby to assist with the evacuation. So Antigua and Barbuda stands ready to assist So we also, pray for the best, but at the same time we prepare.
Another neighboring country willing to take in Vincentian evacuees is Grenada. The island's minister responsible for disaster management, Winston Garwe, said that they are in a state of readiness to receive the evacuees, but awaits the go-ahead from the government of SVG.
The COVID-19 committee will advise on the health protocols in place. The RGPF will address the security, and NADMA, of course, will update on the general readiness of the agency to coordinate our response. At this time, we are not able to say the number of evacuees we are expected to host and the expected time frame. However, we have been advised by the government of St. Vincent that there are several steps to be taken on their end before the formal movements of the citizens to other Caribbean islands. As such, our approach is to ensure that we have all our required support systems in place to be activated once formal notification has been given to us.
And just after the last Soufriere volcano erupted today, Invest Caribbean, the New York and South Florida-based global private sector investment agency of the Caribbean, and its partner, the Risory Group, pitched into action to find a way to help those who have been displaced. In news release, the two organizations have launched the St. Vincent Volcano Disaster Relief GoFundMe to help raise immediate funds to satisfy the urgent needs of displaced individuals to Barbados, as well as those who have now been forced into shelters. The goal the organizations say is to help financially support the long-term needs of many Vincentian families, students, and children who will be displaced for months to come. The organizations say the immediate financial assistance is to buy and provide key items such as food and water and non-perishable goods, including toiletries. Anyone can donate from any location globally. The organizations say funds raised will go to serve the direct needs of individuals and small grassroots organizations supporting those directly displaced by the ongoing disaster. And Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is expected to visit a number of the shelters between East St. George and South Leeward tomorrow, Saturday, April 10th, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. In other news, St. Vincent and the Grenadines recorded 50 new positive cases of COVID-19 from 505 samples received and tested on April 7th, 2021, resulting in a positivity rate of 3%. 6 new recoveries were reported, bringing the total number of recoveries to 1,635. 144 cases are active and 10 persons with COVID-19 have died. 1,789 cases of COVID-19 have been reported in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. The public is urged to continue to use masks, sanitize, physically distance, and get vaccinated to reduce the spread of COVID-19 here in SVG. And that brings us to the end of our local news. We hear that UNICEF survey says more effort is needed to get students in the Caribbean back in the face-to-face classroom. This from the region. When we return, stay with us.